The gentleman from Wisconsin is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Director, as you may know, I'm the co-lead alongside with Congressman Stanton of Arizona on the bill that's exempting certain less than lethal projectile devices from the Gun Control Act definition of a firearm, tasers. ATF provided some comments on an earlier draft of the bill, noting some concerns with the legislation. I'm sure you're aware of the bill. Does ATF still have the same concerns that we had on the earlier version?
I don't know. Look, Congressman, can I get back to you on that? I don't want to answer precipitously. I know this is an important issue for a lot of people, including some in law enforcement have expressed views on it. So can we get back to you on that? Because I don't know whether any changes in the bill have affected anything.
Okay, so then let me just bear with me then. I'll explain some of the arguments. Hopefully, as the director, your understanding of the Gun Control Act will be strong enough to provide some context. But the proposed definition of less than lethal device would be unworkable in the field, I think, is the issue. Yeah. Because officers and agents cannot measure the projectile velocity during field stops and searches and seizures.
As opposed to centrally, but you're talking about out in the field, I understand. Yes.
So, I mean, the ATF doesn't currently test any of the firearm velocity in the field on any of the search and seizure stuff. Is that right or not?
To the best of my knowledge, that is correct. It's always hard because some of our operations aren't in Washington. We have operations that are not field operations but are centralized in other places. So I want to be careful. But we have, I think you're right as a general matter, yes. I'll check, though, and get back to you. If that's not correct, I'll get back to you.
Okay. Okay. So to be clear, ATF right now, though, the concerns that this change would be unworkable in the field hinges on the idea that officers and agents would suddenly need to start measuring velocity and checking the internal workings, right? I mean, what I'm trying to get to the bottom, because I think Congress is way beyond ATF on this. I think there's a bipartisan group that certainly is starting to grow when it comes to this technology, and ATF still seems stuck in where we were 3, 4, 5 years ago.
Okay, I understand.
We
will get.
I mean, obviously, you're getting the same feedback that we are, because this is happening. Law enforcement wants more.
There are exceptions in the current law for law enforcement, but I understand your concern, and we will get back to you, Congressman. I will commit to you that we will get back to you.
Okay, very good, very good. So with the time that I have left, I just also wanted to submit for the record a letter from Mr. Earl Griffith, who served in the ATF for more than 20 years, retiring as a division chief of ATF's Firearm and Ammunition Technology Division. Mr. Griffith's letter, dated March 6, 2024, is in support of the bill, H.R. 3269, and suggests that ATF already has the existing authority to revisit classification determinations if the manufacturer decides to modify a less lethal projectile device into a lethal configuration. And that's what the manufacturers are doing. I mean, they're changing the technology to kind of match up with where ATF is at, and I think that's unnecessary. I think this thing could be cleaned up if we would just have somebody pay attention to kind of where Congress is moving on this and how quickly we're moving.
Congressman, my understanding is that the statutory language that is at issue in a lot of these is to expel a projectile by means of an explosion. And that is what is causing some of these classifications. Now, Mr. Griffith obviously is a well-respected, longtime ATF employee. We'll look at the letter and try to get back to your office on where things stand.
Yeah, I'm just telling you, Congress is way ahead of where ATF is on this. And that's why I wish it would take a deeper kind of longer look at kind of where we're at. Because otherwise, the input that you would have is simply not going to be taken seriously if the statute is written or if the changes are already made. So I would encourage you to do that. I yield back.
Gentleman yield. 30 seconds. Will the gentleman yield? Yeah, thank you. I just real quick. You mentioned earlier that we need to be focused on the facts, particularly relative to the Malinowski case. I just want to make clear, understand. Are you disputing that the ATF was not in Little Rock, Arkansas, ready to execute a raid on the week before, on March 12th, 2024?
I'm neither disputing.
We saw the video. We saw the video, right?
There's a lot of Again, this is a slippery slope. I have to abide by our Department of Justice policy.
Saying ATF wasn't in Little Rock
No,
the week before?
I'm not saying any of that. I'm saying that until the investigation is completed, I am not disputing that fact or any other fact. I'm trying to counsel, because I hear
All I'm
a
saying is
lot
you-
of
you
things
said earlier
flying out
things
there.
were- You said earlier, things were stated that were not facts. I think
wasn't
I have stuck to
focusing-
the facts.
I wasn't focusing
I wanted to
on
just double
that.
check.
There's been a lot of things said, Congressman,
Gentleman from
Mr.
Virginia,
Chairman, I'm sorry.
Gentleman from Virginia is recognized.